Hi there, welcome to Strictly Ball Business with Alec and Dalton. Ready to chat about some fun topics that are going to come to fruition here in the 2021-22 season, and that's including the Magic's young core becoming a more solidified team. And so with that, we're going to dive into who some of the best players are up and coming, some established guys, and we're going to try and keep it around 23 years or under and see who's going to take them to that next level from that age group. We're also going to talk about Collin Sexton's potential fit on the Philadelphia 76ers. We saw a recent rumor that the Cleveland Cavaliers are interested in potentially trading for Ben Simmons. And we already knew that there were rumors earlier in the season of Collin Sexton potentially being traded. Now, this could be a potential good fit. And so we're going to break that down. And we'll also give our predictions for the West All-Stars and the East All-Stars for this season. Though we're a few months out even from the season beginning itself, it's still worth chatting about and seeing what it looks like at this point. So let's dive into the Magic young core, 23 years or under. Who is your number one player from this category, Dalton? And tell me a bit about him.
So my number one for this category, not that he's the best young core. I think the best one is my second option I'll bring up. But I think the most exciting and most entertaining storyline to follow this year will be with Markelle Fultz. 23-year-old, just got that big contract, tore his ACL last year, and of course his thoracic outlet syndrome that he's been dealing with his whole career. I've always liked him. Super smart playmaker. He just looks like a genius on the floor. He knows everything that's happening. It's just getting his offense to follow. His jumper needs to come. His inside game was pretty good. His size is a little bit smaller at 6'3", so it's tougher on him, especially playing through all those injuries for the past few years. But his biggest question going for where his career is going to go is he going to start hitting those threes? I mean, his mid-range shot has come along. It doesn't look smooth. It doesn't look the best. It is looking better as his shot has progressed. As I watched every Magic game as a Magic fan, I see how he's slow. It's not that he's changing his jump shot. It's just he's just getting more comfortable with it. And I think that's huge. But he only takes about 2 3-pointers a game. As we see, that's very hard to do with point guards. I mean, 10 years ago, John Wall, fine. Like he didn't need to shoot threes to be an all-star, to be someone leading a team, and that was possible. But now, like, Russell Westbrook is now bouncing from team to team because he's just not an efficient three-point shooter. And Russell Westbrook is a Hall of Fame player. So if you want to be a starting point guard on a team, you got to develop that shot,
Absolutely. I think he has the potential to do it. I think his jumpers looked a lot better recently. And I think the struggles early on in his career were mainly mental more than it was that thoracic injury. It just seemed like worse than Ben Simmons, at first with the yips. He just didn't believe in himself. But I think he's getting that confidence. Being on the Orlando Magic is a good spot for him, especially being low pressure, being a rebuilding team these next couple of years. And he can really, take the reins as the leader of that team potentially.
Yeah, for sure. Even though I don't think he's the best of the young core, I think he's definitely in place to be the leader of this team. You don't have to be the best player to be the leader. And he's, especially if he comes all this way, all that improvement only makes all the other players look up to you, getting all that done.
Let's hear about the best player though.
Oh, the best player. Yeah. So, Jonathan Isaac is obviously, I think he's the best player. I don't think he's the best offensive potential. However, he's just unstoppable defensively. Like the 34 games he played 2 years ago, he 2.3 blocks, 1.6 steals, 6.8 rebounds. That's out of just a guy who's played less than 90 games in the NBA in his last 4 years. It's insane. Like every time watching him on the floor, you just see how he affects the defense. And be as it may, the Magic had a top 10 defense when they were fully healthy without him. So when he was on the floor, they just looked unbeatable. You couldn't stop them.
Yeah, great player to have on your team moving forward who already knows defense that well. I mean, in that season, he was top 5 in both steals and blocks at the time. And for a guy his age at his position to be top 5 for both, it's pretty awesome.
And he was 3 separate times he was flirting with a 5x5. Those don't know who a 5x5 is: 5 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 steals, 5 blocks, which is like unheard of. I mean, the last to do it was Nurkic 2 years ago, right? It's a very impressive stat. I mean, maybe not the rebounds, assists, and points, but still, like, it just means you're affecting the game at every single level. And 3 times he
Yeah.
almost did it. He didn't get one, but all 3 times he'd had like 5 blocks and 4 steals, or vice versa. But he's defense reminds me of Giannis a lot. He does need to put on weight. He's a very tall, lanky guy. I mean, it's in his favor right now, but if he wants to bang down in the post, defend, or even offensively get in the paint a little more, I think he's got to put on a lot more weight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's got the frame to do it. I mean, he's 6'8", 6'9", and he's already got the good enough movement to figure it out defensively. If he can add that size, he's going to be a real treat and a real combo threat.
Yeah.
In terms of guys that he could potentially teach better defense to and help this Orlando Magic get better at defense, who do you think has, good opportunity to learn from him to take that next step forward?
The biggest piece, so Mo Bamba obviously is the first name you like to think of that you can learn from him. Mo Bamba is a very raw talent. I can get into him a little more. But I think Chuma Okeke is actually going to take a lot of the learning process from him. I mean, Chuma doesn't have the same wingspan. He doesn't have the same build, but Chuma's a very smart player put in. And I mean, at the end of last season, they're like, hey, everyone's injured. He was the only one thrown in, and he was forced to lead this team of subpar NBA players. I mean, how many? I think they brought up four to six players just from the G League just to fill their roster, because they traded away everyone. Everyone was injured last, because Cole, Isaac, and Fultz, who are the only ones left on this team, and Wendell Carter was in and out. Like, all those guys were injured towards the last 30 games, and Chuma was the main scorer. And I mean, he came out and he did well. He was I don't think he was their primary playmaker. I think with Cole out,
Anthony
Calpain. Calpain. Well, Anthony was out. I think it was Troy Calpain who was the primary point guard. But Chuma came out and he really surprised me. I saw him. He was putting up a few 20-point games. He was getting as many steals. He came into the NBA. They're like, he's just going to be a solid 3-and-D guy. I think he's already there. Obviously, he can pull up a little more consistent of a 3-pointer and work on his inside game a little better. But I think he's already there. I think he's fitting the role they want him to. I don't see him doing better, because I don't think he can reach all-star caliber player. I think he can definitely peak at a starter, on NBA starter. I think that's where he can go, and that's nothing bad against him. It's just so far that's the only role I've seen. I mean, he can surprise me, but especially in the role he's going to play with this team, he's going to share minutes with Isaac, Ross, Gary Harris. I mean, it's pretty full, and sounds like this team is gung-ho on development, so I'm sure he'll get his fair minutes, but Gary Harris and Terrence Ross are also making the majority of the salary this upcoming year.
Yeah, I would think Gary Harris gets bought out at some point. Terrence Ross probably gets traded. He's a valuable piece, but he probably still gives you some good games before the deadline. But I see both those guys as potential moves by the deadline, maybe before. So I still don't think it'll impact the playing time of these young guys too much, but early on it might, which is obviously a bummer still.
Yeah, I definitely see Terrence Ross getting traded to a team like the Warriors have been interested, or some other team that just needs a good scorer off the bench. I mean, he's always a 6-man candidate. Not always, but I mean, he's in the conversation, and it's nice. I mean, he does well. He's a good shooter. I don't think Gary Harris is going to get bought out. He's not a good enough player to get bought out. I think they're just going to have to ride out 2 years on his contract. He'll eventually just his minutes will dwindle as it goes as they move to develop all their players more. I just don't see him part of this team in the future. And I don't see him good enough to be someone to be like, hey, the Magic be like, hey, I'm going to pay off your 20 million just for you to go play for the Nets. Well, he's not old enough to play on the Lakers, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll happen right away, but as more money comes off and maybe relationships sour and someone shows interest, I mean, he could potentially get traded, still have some value if he proves himself a little bit, and he's still a good 3-and-D guy on the wing. Potentially, if some injuries happen in the league, and some teams got to make a desperate move, like sign Gary Harris. It's a desperate move type of thing.
Yeah, at the very least, if he comes out and shows that he could defend like he could with the Nugget when he was the starting shooting guard for the Nuggets and just a lockdown defender, maybe teams like the Mavericks or Bulls would be like, yeah, I'm interested in that guy.
Yeah,
but I just want to get back.
But he's old, so let's get back to the young core.
Yeah, I just want to get back to Jonathan Isaac real quick. So I just want to touch briefly on his offense. So his 3-point shot. So as a major part of this team, he's not going to be. What's great about his defense is he's not such a liability like Rudy Gobert, 3-time defensive player of the year. He's actually he's 34 from 3. I mean, with 90 games in the NBA, hard to see that what he's really done. I think I would love to build off with average 3-point shooter. If he can only go up from here, that's perfect. But his mid-range is very much like Durant. It's high release. It's super hard to guard. So that was my most impressive part about him is his mid-range. Once he gets bigger, his inside game will come, and I'm not too worried about that. But his defensive rating actually was super crazy last year. It was 101.8. 101.8. In perspective, really Marcus Smart, one of his better years was 106. So I don't like to get wrapped up in defensive rating all the time because it could be a good defensive player on a bad team and he'll still have a bad defensive rating because it's averages out with the team. But still, he's been on the Magic and they haven't been that great, and he's had a 101. That's insane.
Yeah. That is insane. I mean, imagine how good he's going to look when they're making playoffs consistently.
Yeah. And final thing on Isaac is he was drafted as a 3 small forward. I think now that Aaron Gordon's gone, I think they should just commit him to the 4. I think that's where he should be. Gets to stay in a shot blocking presence and still gets his perimeter out there. I think he's their 4 going forward. I don't think the answer is Chuma. I think Chuma could slide into the 3 just fine, but I think that the 4 is his position going forward. I commit to that. And he could play a small center too. He's 6'11". He's a tall guy.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have good defense at the 4. I think, he can switch to center and to the 3 at certain points if a better player's at those positions and he needs to guard them. I don't think, it's definitely not a bad thing. And position wise, fitting in with a guy like Jalen Suggs, I think that's perfect because, Suggs comes in and potentially is your point guard of the future with you've already got one of your front court guys set as well. So really nice to see.
Yeah. Speaking of Suggs, so point guard of the future is a lot of things thrown around. They really have 3 guards. I know people say RJ's in the conversation. I mean, he could surprise people, but right now it's the 3 vying for those 2 spots are Fultz, Suggs, and Anthony. Personally, I like to start Fultz at point guard with Suggs at shooting guard, mainly because Fultz has already established himself to run this team's offense for the last year and a half. And I mean, Suggs can do it. Suggs also 2 inches taller than Fultz and he's a way better defender already. So I'd rather see him at the 2, plus he can hit that 3 because that was one concern hit with him coming into the NBA. I mean, everyone knew he was a decent shooter. He didn't have the best numbers in college, but we were wondering if it could translate or if he could get better at shooting. And he did. Summer League, he just knocked it out of the park. 42, 35, 78 shooting splits. He was doing really well. He was just the standout. To me, he was the standout of Summer League. being the fourth pick. I mean, Jalen Green, Caden Cunningham stood out. That Nets player, Cam Thomas, that they all stood out. But I think at 4, he just was showing the Raptors that they still should have picked him up. But he's a strong. So him and Fultz actually have a very good guard post up game. I mean, you don't see much of it, but Klay Thompson is a huge. If you want to see some good guard post ups, Klay Thompson's actually has a really nice game down there, and they both are reminiscent of him in the way that they play turnaround jumpers. They got pretty solid strokes when it comes to that. He is so the thing about Suggs is he is a very ball dominant guard. He likes to have it in his hands. So it's gonna be weird. It's because Fultz, he moves off ball and he has a good find, but he's not a great shooter. So that's the fit. So that's where people lean on Suggs and Cole Anthony. However, I just think there's too much talent with Fultz. I mean, I'm sure they'll all play together at some point. Like there's lineups that get thrown out. But if we're just referring to starting 5, the majority of the time they're going to spend together. I'm unsure of the fit between Suggs and Fultz. I want to see more of Suggs off ball. During Summer League, he was running the show, so you didn't get to see that showcased as well. But his 3, all their 3 has to come, and they just need more shooting on this team. And I think he's going to help raise the potential ceiling for this team. And I think he's got the highest potential of all of the players on this team.
For sure. I mean, he could potentially be a fantastic shooter himself. So if he can bring that to the team, that's going to add another dimension that you guys don't have.
Yeah, I think he's the only superstar on this team. I think maybe Fultz can, if he comes out to be at what I think his potential will be, maybe he'll make 1 or 2 all-star games. And unless the NBA starts giving a shit about defense, Jonathan Isaac will never make an all-star team. I think he plays good enough on that end where he could make an all-star team if you're talking comparable.
It'd have to be really good. It'd have to be like the Magic or a top 2-3 seed,
Yeah, I mean, they let Draymond be an all-star. So
and he's on the Warriors.
Yeah. I mean, that's why they let him on there. Plus he had like 8 assists and he's a very good defensive player. But Jonathan Isaac can if he can give you 14 points and still play the defense, I think he's worth being an all-star nod, especially if they're winning. Obviously they have to win to get an all-star, but the 4th guy. So moving to Cole Anthony, I mean, he got a huge, thinking of the word, opportunity last year with Fultz going out. So he became their starting point guard until he was on and off injury, and then he was out for a month and a half, and then he came back at the very tail end. So he got a huge opportunity to show everyone what he could do. And I thought he was snubbed for a all rookie team. He only averaged 13 points off poor efficiency, 40, 34, 83 shooting splits, but 4.1 assists, 4.7 rebounds. He had a little under a steal. I think that was good enough. And he did it consistently. I mean, he maybe missed out because of the injuries I mentioned earlier, but he really showed that they got a good pick there. I think he was the perfect pick there. I think he obviously could have gone higher. I think obviously he showed out better than Obi Toppin did his rookie year. So the Knicks should have picked up Cole Anthony, as everyone wanted them to. Stephen A ranted about that, but he's really shown that I think what I want his potential to be, and I want him to turn into the role, is like a Jordan Clarkson for the Magic. I think he can certainly fit into that role. I think he's very reminiscent of how he plays. Not the best on defense, but certainly an effort player. Not as athletic, but he can still get up there. His shooting. I mean, he hit two game winners, and both of them were pretty tight. So I think he's got that 6-man mentality. I think he can win that award. I think he's the next Lou Will. You heard it here.
That'd be great. I mean, he's a fun player to watch, and he drips with swag. After one of those game winners, he was like, "I was born for this." I knew I was going to make it. Obviously, it was going, and he was just confident about it. And that's the type of guys you need. You don't need guys with personalities like Andrew Wiggins, comparable to a cedar doorknob. So, I mean, I like it. I like the guy, and I think he's a good dude to have on your team. It's the only question is, like, you guys have so many good young players at guard, one of them might get phased out at some point. But if he's all right with being the sixth man, he can certainly stick around and he'll be great in that role.
Yeah, I think he would fit that perfectly. But so the next two guys, I'm going to talk about them kind of all in one section, speaking more to Mo Bamba and Wendell Carter Jr. But I mean, so they're both vying for that starting center role. I mean, a lot of people think just because they got Wendell Carter doesn't mean that means that he's the starting and they're going to look to move Bamba. I really see this as Mosley's way of being like, all right, whoever plays the best gets the minutes, because Mo Bamba, when he came in last year, when Wendell was in and out at the end of the year, he came out. I saw like a 19 rebound game. He was doing well, and I think he was showing that the potential that he could have been if we didn't have Vooch that whole time, or even Kem Birch. Because remember, I mean, they've had Mo Bamba for 3 years, and he could have been the backup point guard, backup center for 2 of those years, but he wasn't, because Kem Birch played better. He showed that, and he showed that he could provide for a team that was trying to make the playoffs. And Steve Clifford really doesn't give a shit about player development. So he put Kem Birch first. And at that time, that was fine. I thought that was the right move. I think they could have gotten more for Bamba if they would have traded him. I don't know what package they could have got, but now they have him, and now he's competing with Wendell. What he has over Wendell is obviously his shooting and shot blocking is better than both of Wendell. I mean, his shooting's better now. It could develop into something better. I mean, he's shown that he has a decent stroke. His blocks are, I mean, they're nice. They'll get up there. He certainly has the reach for it. He's just not as smart, like we said earlier, that he can learn a lot from Jonathan Isaac, and when to help, when not to help, when to go for the block, when to just get your arms up. And I think that would help out a lot. Wendell isn't a liability off defense. I mean, he's certainly like a good defensive. He's just not a shot blocking presence as Mo Bamba is. Like, he can still hold down the middle just fine. He can, in my opinion, he's a better rebounder. I mean, 8.8 rebounds last year. But he is a much better inside. Like, he has a big game, Wendell Carter, like for his offense. He can play around the rim just way better because he's more muscular. He has a better stature inside than Mo Bamba, because Mo Bamba's smaller and he tends to like to stretch out to the perimeter a lot more. So they don't get that inside presence offensively that they get from Wendell Carter. And Wendell Carter's, I mean, 49% from the field. I think he was like 55% from inside. And I think that's perfect. That's where you want to be. So if I had a preference, if I had to make a choice right now, which center I would pick, I would choose Wendell because Mo Bamba is just such a huge question mark. I think he has the potential to be better, but that doesn't mean Wendell Carter doesn't have potential to get better also. But Mo Bamba adds that shooting that they'll definitely need. So it's a toss up. You can convince me either way, but I would have to pick Wendell if we had to pick centers today. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go with Wendell as well. I think, I didn't realize he was even younger than Mo. So given that I have that information, I mean, I'm willing to give him the hand if he's playing better, which he did the last couple seasons. Though with Mo, I've always been a big believer that, he never got a fair shot with Vucevic being the starter, bringing in Kem Birch, just wanting to play guys that are immediately better. Whereas we knew Mo was going to be a bit of a project. The Magic knew that when they drafted him, but yet, then you don't give the project some opportunities to grow. In my opinion, that's kind of what's led to him not being the choice over Wendell. So I think the Magic don't have anyone else to blame for themselves for that. But they still have him. So maybe he can prove us differently this year. I think with a new head coach in Jamal Mosley, that's going to be a big change for sure. And one that should give them both opportunities and hopefully gives Mo some opportunities to become who I thought he was when he was drafted.
Yeah. I imagine they'll still start Wendell at the beginning of the center, but I think they're going to see, both of them are going to see similar minutes, and we'll start to see that spread go as the season comes to an end. I think one will by far be getting more minutes than the other because they're both up for contract at the end of this year. So this is really I think it'll be exciting to see. I think they both know that they're competing for a contract and that starting roster spot. I mean, who knows? They could just the Magic could be bad and get Chet Holmgren, and none of this could matter.
Yeah, they could get Chet. Yeah, I mean that would be awesome. You got the mini haha down in Orlando.
I'm for it. I'm all right with it. But a few of the, I mean, we mentioned Chuma.
But
Go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say we haven't talked at all about Franz Wagner. You have anything to say on him?
I don't have much to say. I mean, I mostly throw my excitement on the last six guys. I mean, there's 9 players on this roster that are underneath 23, and all of them have potential. But RJ Hampton, Chuma, and Wagner, I didn't do as much on. I mean, I see all their value. Wagner's coming in as like a Draymond Green prototype type player. He's playmaker. He can do a little bit of everything. Jack of all trades, but master at none right now. I'd like to see him excel in a certain role. I think that's how he's going to get this roster spot. And he looked good in summer league. We'll see.
Sure.
He's still a giant question mark, and I want to see more from him before I make that big of a judgment.
Sure. It'll be a big season for a lot of these Magic players, but I think we're very excited about their future. You in particular, it's about time that they just rebuilded and got some picks back for the players they had before. And I think it's going to be exciting to see them grow. But let's move on to talking about Collin Sexton as a potential fit with the Philadelphia 76ers. There was a recent report indicating that the Cleveland Cavaliers are interested in trading for Ben Simmons still. And we knew that Collin Sexton was interested, or I'm sorry, the Cavaliers were also interested in getting rid of Collin Sexton potentially, as he's due for an extension soon, which has led us to believe, well, this could be a good fit. Maybe a couple of these guys who need a new situation could be traded for each other. Collin Sexton, first of all, point guard for the Cleveland Cavaliers, 6'1", 190 pounds. What do you think his fit would be like with the Sixers, Dalton?
I love it. I think you still get young talent. So a lot of these trade options that the 76ers have, they lose that potential that they get out of Ben Simmons. But when you get Collin Sexton, I mean, yes, he's a defensive liability, but he still has room to grow. I mean, nobody thought he was going to be a good shooter. He came out shooting 37% from 3 off a high volume. 20.2 points per game, 4.4 assists, could be a better playmaker. He's not the best. Doesn't make the smartest passes. 1 steal, 82% from free throw. I know 76ers fans will love that.
I love that.
But I think he'd be a huge piece. I mean, I think depending upon what they get. So I had a trade that I thought this would be the best. I mean, it's really hard to work this out if I were the 76ers and Cavs, because they don't have, neither one has that much cap flexibility. They don't have a player that they're like, oh yeah, we can just throw him in there, you know? So Ben Simmons for Kevin Love, Collin Sexton, Dylan Windler, and 2 first-round picks, and the second one is top 10 protected is what I had on there. That's probably the most realistic I see. I think it could definitely happen. If I were the 76ers, I would want, rather than Kevin, I don't think Kevin Love is what Kevin Love thinks he's going to be on another team. If I were the 76ers, I'd want, if I'm getting Collin Sexton, I'd want another piece that I can just still throw into a starting lineup, you know? And I don't think, I mean, Kevin, you could throw Kevin in there. I think he would fit fine next to Embiid, a 3-point shooter. Embiid can cover him up on defense, smart player. He's definitely a veteran presence that in the right situation could help them. It's just a selfish. I mean, it's just, he's like, I want to go to an already contender, but he doesn't want to help the young Cavaliers grow.
He's like Stephon Diggs in the NFL, who just said, yes, I was a good teammate until things got bad. Then I was a bad teammate. Well, that means you're a bad teammate, bro. If you're shitty when the things get tough, that's who you really are. And it's the same thing with Kevin Love. I mean, he wasn't even in good enough shape to play on Team USA when they finagled him onto that roster for no good reason. You know, he's not going to be in good enough shape to get traded to a championship contending 76ers. I don't know who else is on that team that makes sense with the salary unless you're giving up Rubio and someone else. And even that doesn't make sense. They don't need Rubio in Philadelphia if they're getting Collin Sexton.
I mean, I can see if they just really don't want Kevin Love and they're like, give me Rubio and like Chetty Osman, and this they're like, okay. I guess I can see that. Like, I would personally rather have Rubio at this point than Kevin Love. Locker room, like including all the locker room stuff. At least Rubio's like a good veteran to have on a
Yep.
team. Like you're gonna learn from him.
Yep.
And he's a facilitator. I mean, they already have 3 scoring options if you include Collin Sexton in this. So I think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I do think Collin Sexton's a lot better fit next to Embiid. I mean, he has this thing where he gets into the gap. He can get into the gaps in the defense. He can really collapse them. I mean, not that they didn't collapse for Ben Simmons, but Collin Sexton, when he collapses in, he pulls more. I'm just because he's a shooting threat that more people have to shift over. But because Ben wasn't a shooting threat, they all just went down. They all went downhill on him. But because he's a great mid-range shooter, they have to come shift over a certain amount, and that's going to give Embiid looks he never even got with Simmons. And
Yep.
that not Simmons is a better passer by far, but I think Colin certainly has it in him to learn to make that extra pass, to look out there, because he does go into the lane without a plan all the time. And I think that this culture and this coaching staff is really going to help out on being like, hey, here's the smart passes. Here's what you have to do.
Yeah, I think definitely Joel Embiid would be a guy who can help Colin Sexton get better. I mean, last year he had 4 assists to 3 turnovers for Sexton. That's not good, but if he can at least get those turnovers down to just 2 flat and then get the assists up to like 6 or 7 someday, that would be great. I mean, he's increased his points per game by 4 each season, and he's only played 3 years. This guy could easily average 27 in the next couple of years, and you put him alongside Embiid. That's a great fit. I think it'd be really exciting to watch personally, and it'd be massively different than what they have in Ben Simmons, where yeah, you do lose quite a bit of defense at first and some facilitating, but you gain a lot of scoring. And you know what I will say about Colin Sexton on his defense is that he plays hard. He still plays hard, and he is smaller, but he plays really hard. And that's the type of guy that I'm going to take because he's high effort. Today, when he was talking about his first time playing Stephen Curry, he got cooked 41 points, and he said there was nothing I could do. But you look at the clips, and he was trying his ass off. I mean, he was slipping around, he was going through screens, at least trying to, but Curry was just nailing tough shot after tough shot. I believe in Sexton if he can continue to be that fast guy and stay in front of guys. If he can figure that out, I believe in his potential next to an already fantastic defensive team in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I just think the issue with his defense is more his height. I mean, he's 6'3", right? Which is small for a shooting guard, and so
6'1".
6'1". Yeah, so that's really small for a shooting guard. And the only reason the Cavs played him at shooting guard is because of his playmaking, because he couldn't get that better. I mean, if he can increase his playmaking, they can play him at the 1 and still have defense around him. I mean, just because you play the shooting guard doesn't necessarily mean you have to guard their shooting guard. I mean, there's ways to fit him in. I mean, if Isaiah Thomas can fit into a great offense, then they can certainly fit a guy like Collin Sexton in. But
Absolutely.
I actually have another thing. So this very unlikely to happen, but it's just for talking topic is, so if Ben Simmons trade does not happen right as the season starts, and if it gets pushed over and somehow makes it to the trade deadline and they convince Ben to come back and play, I think a certain option where you would definitely have the best package in to the 76ers, because you have to wait 30 or 40 days to even trade this player, is marketing Sexton, and then maybe just like a lottery protected first and like toss in Rubio. And I think that would do. I think that would definitely be like 76ers would be like, yep, no problem. We get what we want. But at this point, with the package we previously offered, I don't think that's the best one on the table. But Markin and Sexton would be perfect fit. I mean, put Markkinen. Markkinen's like what Kevin Love thinks he is right now. Like he can hit those shots. You don't get that veteran presence nor the defense, but with a guy like Embiid, he can still he's a great player because he can hold down a defense. So, and he's a great fit next to Embiid because he's great outside shooter. He's will make his own shot.
Multiple shooters who can get out in transition would be important for this team. So I agree, Markkinen and Sexton would be an appealing package. It would be interesting to see the Cavaliers trade them that far or that, fast into the contract. But if they want Simmons, that bad, I've seen crazier things happen. So it is what it is. But I will say, I don't think Ben Simmons is reporting the camp. I don't think he's going to be on the team this season. I think out of all the superstars that have requested out recently, he's the biggest drama-filled one. So for people that expect him to start the season just like Davis or Harden did, I think is unrealistic. This guy is pretty adamant, and we're seeing, reports come out each day about how he told Sixers a couple weeks ago he wasn't planning on reporting to training camp. And before that, he had a meeting with Sixers brass where they said, oh, we tried to trade you. We couldn't find the package. You're going to have to start the season to play a little better, get your value up, and then we'll trade you. And he's like, it's not my responsibility to, help out with my trade value. And in fact, he might be looking at it as, you know what? I want to take my trade value because I want the team I'm going to be decent still.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I just, this is definitely a players' league, and I totally understand why. I mean, you hear a lot of ex-players say like, "Oh yeah, this is the way it should be." Like, good for him to do all this and stuff. But like, people forget about like contracts and stuff. Like, the team does mean something. Like, I don't watch. Like, I watch and I'm entertained by the players, but I have a team I follow. Like, I'm a Magic fan. I love them. I'll always watch the Magic. Even like I love Vucevic, great guy. And I'll probably still watch some Bulls games, but like I'm watching the team, I'm supporting the team and the players on that team. And it just sucks to be like a 76ers fan and to be like, see a guy that you rooted for, you saw, you developed, and see him just not give a shit about your team. I mean, yeah, there's some bad blood in there, but like whatever happened to just being like, all right, I want to get traded. I'll play. I'll do whatever. Like, I think they just have so much leeway the players do now. It's just it hurts to watch basketball sometimes because like you don't know if someone's just sitting out just because they're not having discussions. Like Blake Griffin just sat out with the Pistons, and that wasn't even fair to the Pistons. They didn't do anything wrong. They were just the Pistons. That's why he didn't want to play for them. Like if I were a Pistons fan, I actually knew a Pistons fan. He's like, oh yeah, we got Blake Griffin. He was so excited about it. Year and a half later, he's like, fuck Blake Griffin, man. And I'm with him. Like, I was like, I really like Jimmy Butler. Yeah, the Timberwolves should have offered him that supermax before Wiggins, and that's what got him mad. But, well, I mean, all things considered, I guess he just didn't like the drive. But I mean, there's worse things on that team. There was a 3 seed up until he got injured. They're still a young
we
team
were great that year. I think he just, wanted to live in Miami, not Minnesota.
Yeah. And I mean, and it just sucks for small market teams, because these guys, I mean, not that 76ers are a small market, but all it takes is like one little thing and they're gone. Like, I get like a working culture is good and all. And I'm not taking anything away from like the players can't go where they want to go, but like people forget when you sign a large contract. I mean, like, all right, I'm signing this supermax for 5 years and they're going to pay me 45 million for the next 5 years. And like down the road, maybe I'll just get traded. Be like, no, remember, you're like signing that team because the team's like, we want to have you for 5 years, not we want to have you for 2 years, not make the playoffs, then trade you for 20 cents on the dollar. like,
yeah, I agree. Contracts should mean something, but we are in a reality where humans are playing basketball, not robots that we're using on 2K. So they have real emotions. They have real decisions that they want to make. And it's not always about the money. I do hate when guys just force their way to specific teams and want to just force super teams. Like when Ben Simmons says, oh yeah, I want to be out and you got to trade me to a team in California. That's where I'm like, shut the fuck up. You're getting traded wherever you're going. Like, that's fine if you want to trade your request. I get it. you don't get to say where you're gonna go when you have 4 years on your contract and you just sucked ass in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, like I like Damian Lillard. Why I think he's like one of the best guys in the NBA is specifically because this point. Like he's aside from the point where he's just like, I want to win with this team. I want to try. Like he's even if he's made it clear when he finally does make it clear that he wants to be traded, like he is like, I understand. I'll be like, yeah, all right, you've given us that try. But Simmons is like, I mean, okay, maybe Simmons isn't a good example, but running back to Jimmy Butler, I mean, he's like, I want to get traded. Be like, you were here for a year, man. Like, give us, come on, like you made a third seed. Like, you don't think you can get better? Like, just because Miami's warm and winter here sucks. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
We got juicy Lucy's. Like,
Yeah. Come on.
come on. We got fireplaces. It's fine. It's fine. The summer's hot this year.
No, I hear you though. The NBA and professional sports as a whole, it's just become what have you done for me lately? Like, you already had Kawhi almost like talking about like entertaining cities as a free agent. Like he planned to go on visits till people are like, no, you're just like going to use us and eventually go back to Clippers. But even so, like say an alternate universe where he goes on these meetings and he signs me with another team, it's like, you're with the fucking Clippers for 2 years. You made them give up 4 first-round picks for Paul George, and you're Mr. Time Load Management. You got to do everything your way. You don't get to leave ever, bro. You got to fucking help us out here. Like,
Yeah.
be a man of your word, which, they ended up re-signing, whatever. But just the fact that he didn't re-sign that max at the first instant, was
Yeah.
kind of annoying to me. It's like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
These
Like
guys have done everything.
yeah, they did everything for you. And I get it's a business. It goes both ways. Like a team like DeMar DeRozan, he's like, I'm signing this contract because I want to retire with the Raptors. And then they're like, we get a year of Kawhi for DeMar DeRozan. Fuck yeah, get over here. And like I get that. Like there's two sides to it. It's just lately I haven't seen that other side lately. I'm not saying I want balance. I'm not saying I want to see a player get his heart broken. It's just I don't want to see small markets get their heart broken anymore. Like I
I
get it
do
goes
want
two
to
ways.
I do want to see, more of these trade requests though end in the player going to just a shit situation that he didn't want. Like, I mean, Ben Simmons going to the Wolves isn't necessarily a shit situation he didn't want, but it's still funny he gets sent to Minnesota. Or like say, I mean, I don't know, say like who's like a guy who's going to request a trade that's kind of lame for doing it.
Ah, who
Is
was
there anybody
the
in that
who was the
category?
other year?
I mean,
I
like,
I know what you mean. So somebody the other year was just I saw him be like, I want to be traded. I'm like, who gives a shit? If you like, who was it? It was Marcin Gortat like 3 years ago. It was like, I don't want
oh,
to be
like
with the
forever. I
Wizards.
I
I was
do
like,
remember that. Yeah, you're right. It was like, yeah, I'm requesting a trade. It was like, dude, shut up. Like, what do you think you have power?
yeah.
You're like in your last couple of years. I think what he was trying to do, he was trying to get traded like back to the Suns. Maybe he wanted to like retire as a Sun, or
No,
was the
he
Magic?
said he
Maybe
wanted
I
to
don't know.
retire the Magic, actually. Yeah.
Magic. Oh,
He's
okay.
like, I want to retire with the Magic. He's like, John Wall's a selfish player, and John Wall's like, I average 10 assists a game, and all you do is just catch my lobs. Like he's like, I don't care, go. Like,
Yeah.
no, that was a good example. But I mean, at least Kawhi like gets traded to Toronto. Obviously, didn't want to go to Toronto. He's like, I'll just win them a championship and go to the Clippers. And everyone they're like, okay, oh, whatever, that's fine, man.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
like yeah, that's okay. Like there's things where if they go there and they give a good try. I mean, some people like. I mean, Paul George wasn't his fault, but he went there and he bought into OKC. He also signed there on free
He
agency. I
did
guess that
force
doesn't.
his way out of Indiana though, after giving them a ton of great years.
Yeah, and at that's a good example. Like Pacers were like, all right, yeah, you've done what you could. Like you've gotten face fucked
I
by
almost
LeBron
think
for that
at
many years.
I almost think at the time Pacer fans didn't like him for it. To be honest, I think you have that wrong.
You're right. They didn't like it. I understood it when it happened. I mean, he had been there for 7, 8 years, right?
I think it was like, yeah, 6 or 7, but he wasn't very, very professional on the way
Mhm.
out. And, I think he was only a couple years off of that broken leg. So he did miss a whole season for that. So they,
Yeah.
were with him for that. So
Yeah. That's one that could go either way. I'm with that one. I'm like, okay. He gave ample time to them. And then I mean, who was the best player that played with him on the Pacers? Lance Stephenson. Like I don't think they
no,
did the best
Roy
job building
Hibbert.
around him. Roy
Roy
Hibbert, yeah.
Hibbert was a
Ah,
star for a couple of years. Then he really
like
fell
two
off.
years.
They traded for Evan Turner after I forget who they had at the three. They kind of swapped someone out.
Yeah, and then they had Darren Collison there for that whole time too. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
he's a good player.
Contracts, but cool.
But yeah, so I think we talked a bit about Sexton to the Sixers. Next category we wanted to get into here was predicting all-stars for this upcoming season. We're still a solid 3, 4, 5 months away from that. I don't remember when the all-star game is. But who are your first 5 for the West? Let's
For the
start on the
West.
West.
Sure thing. So I think the West is a little more clear for me. I'm pretty. I have one controversial one here. So last year for the West All Stars, I thought Curry, Lillard, James, Leonard, and Jokic deserved it. Jokic, obviously, I don't think anybody can make argument for him in the West. I mean, maybe if Cat comes out and has an MVP season, leads the Wolves to the 1 seed going into the All-Star game, I think that's like the one chance of upsetting Jokic from being an All-Star. So I think he's going to be their starting center. I think because Kawhi's out, I think Anthony Davis is not going to come back as strong. I think Zion's going to take that next spot. I think this is his first All-Star start this year. I think LeBron's just going to get it because he's LeBron James. Even if he's outplayed by someone else, I think he's going to be an all-star starter this year. And then Curry, I think he's a shoo-in. He's Curry. But I think now normally I think the pick is for Lillard. I mean, not for Lillard or Doncic. But I think I say Paul George because I think he's going to have a crazy season. He's going to be the leader. He's going to lead this Clippers team. He just led them without Kawhi to the conference finals. I think he's going to come out. He's going to show what he can. I think he took a worse team to the conference finals, but he's going to get Serge Ibaka back. I think Bledsoe is a better fit. Then he gives you more offensively and not as much. I think he's a way better player than Beverly. Maybe not way better, but I think he can provide more in the role that Beverly had. So I think they have enough pieces this year. I think Luke Kennard's is gonna step up in roles. I think Paul George is gonna go crazy. I think he's gonna earn this starting spot.
So you think Paul George is going to start in the West as a guard?
Yeah, I mean he plays shooting guard when Kawhi's in,
And Kawhi's not in this year.
and Kawhi's out this whole year.
Right. So what's Paul George going to play?
His preferred spot is
forward?
shooting guard. No, his
He's going to
preferred.
play shooting guard this year?
I mean, it really depends because they filter Luke Kennard in for wings. They filter Terrence Mann can play 1 through. I mean, they play him 1 through 5. He played center at one game, but it's positionless. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's
Paul
very
George is a
possible.
forward. I'm going to say that right now. Paul George is a forward. You're a fraud. But my West All-Stars are pretty similar to yours, a bit more chalky. I went Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Nikola Jokic. So I am banking on Anthony Davis being healthy enough and having a resurgence year to be in the All-Star game on a 1 seed or 2 seed Lakers team. It's the fucking Lakers. And LeBron James is obviously going to be in there. Luka Doncic, I think, is going to have an amazing year. He's obviously already got the recognition he needs. He's going to get a ton of votes anyways. So he might be the overall vote getter this year.
Yeah. I could go with Lillard too. I think a dark horse for that guard spot is Donovan Mitchell. I think he just led them to the 1st seed. I think if he does that again, I don't see how you ignore a guy like that out of that starting position, especially if Luka and Dame don't have their winning, like they're not winning as many games. They're at the bottom of the seeds. I mean, like I'm talking 8, 7, 8, 9, 10. If they're down there, I don't see how you can ignore Donovan Mitchell any longer at that starting spot.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that's definitely a good opinion there. Good take. On the East side, who do you got?
So again, last year my picks were Beal, Levine, Durant, Antetokounmpo, and Embiid. Now this one's pretty straightforward too. I only have one change. I have Beal, Harden, Durant, Giannis, and Embiid. I didn't think Kyrie deserved a starting spot last year because he was out for like half the games, and I just really thought Levine played out, did his best. I thought he deserved that starting spot over him. He still made the both still made the All-Star game. It's whatever, but I think Harden's gonna be Harden. He's gonna come out. I mean, he never does that well in the playoffs, but I think he's just gonna kill it. He's not gonna be injured. Him and Durant. I mean, obviously Durant and Giannis are going to make it. Embiid's by far the best center in the East. I mean, closest is what, Bam Adebayo or Vucevic, or not Miles Turner, maybe Sabonis if he commits to being a center. Not that. And Beal is just going to be Bradley Beal, and he's just going to be crazy and be the only thing making the Wizards relevant, Washington relevant, other than whoever's in office.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure we have the exact same ones here. I have James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Embiid.
Yeah, I think East is pretty clear. I think
Yeah.
I don't know how you can make it. You could maybe make an argument if someone gets hurt, like if Beal gets traded to the West. I mean, who would take that spot? Like Trae Young.
I mean, I thought about putting Tatum in here in the forward position, but it's too strong with Giannis and Durant. I think Jaylen Brown maybe could start at the guard position. Trae Young is a good option as well, but they'd have to have amazing seasons to beat out Harden, Irving, Beal. I mean, any of those three. Levine, I would put all those guys above Young or Brown still.
Yeah, I actually think it's very possible that Trae Young makes it in here, especially if the Wizards are just at the bottom three teams this in the East, because they like no one more gets. The NBA doesn't scrutinize anybody else besides Beal for losing. If he's on a losing team, they're like, we're not going to put you. You're not an all-star starter. But they love Trae Young. So if Trae Young is winning, if he's a top 5 seed, he can definitely be a starter. I see that.
Yeah.
If the Bulls make a bigger jump and we underestimate them, they turn into a top 3 seed. I think that's possible. Jimmy,
yep.
He's probably not going to play guard this year, but Jimmy's always a candidate. I don't think Lowry will get there. Brogdon probably not.
Maybe Drew.
No. Yeah, maybe Drew. It's very possible. I just don't think. I mean, if defense played a thing in All-Star games, which I think it should, I find defense just as entertaining.
Yeah,
I enjoy it. I enjoy that end, but
I would say the championship probably helps out his pedigree a little bit for the All-Star games moving forward. I mean, he's been to an All-Star game before, and now he's got the championship. So, everybody's heard about how great he is at defense. Now even the casuals know. So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
maybe he'll get some more votes.
Yeah, the Bucks could get 3 NBA if they're on track for like a 65-70 win season again. I think they could definitely get 3 All-Stars in there. I mean, he is a much better chance than Eric Bledsoe ever did. And that was a conversation when they were like 3 years ago. People talked about, is Bledsoe going to make it? I was like,
come on.
I was like, nah.
But it'll be interesting to see if our choices for this change in the future, if even before the season starts. But for now, that's who we got. And, it was a good show today. Is this episode 12?
Yeah, episode 12.
Episode 12, baby. We are Strictly Ball Business. We're up to 24 subscribers on YouTube. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple Music. We are on an Apple Podcast. Whatever Apple you want, I'll be in the apple of your eye. Just kidding. I have a beautiful girlfriend. But we will see you next time for episode 13, Unlucky 13. And as always,